Why am I not an atheist? Nobody knows for sure. I was raised Jewish and I called myself an atheist for many years. I seriously do not believe in the existence of a God as most people would describe it, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe in all gods as all gods could possibly be. I had developed a logical notion about why religion was totally wrong and that therefore God did not exist. I would encounter missionaries and proselytizers, primarily Christian, and usually at the big summer festivals, holding signs about the horrors of hell and thumping their Bibles. The next time you bump into a Christian proselytizer who claims to read the Bible, and most of them actually do not, ask them to read Isaiah 45:7, which states, I create all that is light and all that is dark, I bring forth all that is good and all that is evil, I, thy Lord God, do all these things. And that, of course, means that the devil is an aspect of God. But then, how is Jesus, who is an aspect of God, tempted by the devil, who is an aspect of God? Is God just screwing with God? That doesn't make any sense. My atheism argument, which once sent a man reeling so that he had to go sit down and hold his head in his hands, was something like this. My idea of God is imaginary from your perspective. You do not care about my idea of God, which you see as being imaginary, and want me to accept your idea about God, which you see as being real. You see everyone's idea of God as being imaginary but your own. But your idea of God, from my perspective, is imaginary. Everyone's idea of God as I see it is imaginary, and my idea of God, as everyone else sees it, is imaginary. The Bible and any other holy book is based on ideas people had about their own idea of God, and they have to spread it through the book since it cannot easily be explained, and not everyone just knows it at birth. In fact, nobody knows it at birth. Isn't it weird that we all have to be indoctrinated into religion and we don't just have God talking in our heads and we're like, oh yes, I understand God, I must go to church, I must worship and all this. We have to get it out of a book. Isn't that just weird? The contents of a book, unread, are imaginary to anyone who never read it, and I can tell you what I believe is in a book, and you can believe me and never read it. So your understanding of the book that you never read is wholly imaginary based on my claimed understanding of that same book that I never read. My understanding of the book and my idea of God are imaginary. So by accepting my interpretation of the book and never reading it, you are developing an understanding based on my explanation of the meaning understood through my imagination. The book is based on imaginary ideas, and interpretations of the book are imaginary, and so, therefore, God is imaginary. And I would stop there, because it would settle my dispute and validate my atheism in my own mind. But you can go further with that. Validating my idea in my mind, and in the mind and or minds of someone else or anyone else or everyone else, is only imaginary based on my understanding of my own idea and your understanding of my own idea as I express it. But what is my understanding of it, and is that understanding real or imaginary? My own understanding of anything is wholly imaginary from anyone's perspective but mine, exactly as my understanding of God is imaginary. My understanding of atheism is exactly as imaginary as any idea of God, and being just as imaginary as each other, they are also just as real. Ideas are real. Unexpressed ideas are just as real in the minds of those that hold them as expressed ideas are in the minds that hold them. God, being imaginary, is exactly as real as atheism, which is imaginary. I can prove that atheism exists in the mind of every atheist and in the mind of every religious person. And it is a real threat against God in the minds of true believers. I can prove that God exists in the minds of every person who has any idea at all about God. Ideas exist as part of the interface between mind and reality, and mind exists in that state as well. So God exists as an idea in the mind, just as atheism exists as an idea in the mind. Choosing atheism does not make the idea of God vanish, so atheism defies the reality experienced by the atheist. Choosing religion does not make God manifest in the world beyond thought, so religion defies the reality experienced by the believer. God exists as an idea just as atheism exists as an idea. But if they exist equally as much as each other, then atheism cannot be true because it defies the existence of God. And both atheism and God exist as ideas. Religion cannot be true because it supposes that God exists outside the mind as a fact of reality. I cannot be religious because religion is just ideas about what other people may imagine God to be, which has nothing to do with God in my mind. My idea of God is not your idea of God. We do not have the same God in our minds because we do not have the same experience of reality and understanding of mind. This is why the Bible rejects graven images of God. God is different in every mind, and your illustration of God illustrates nothing about my idea of God, and so we disagree about what God looks like, and religion deviates based upon that. So is atheism real? Atheism is as real as any idea. Is God real? God is as real as any idea. If God is exactly as real as the claim that God does not exist, then that claim, which exists, must be false because God exists as much as the claim. Is God implanting souls and inducing life and wonder in the universe? No, that's just an idea. The idea is real, but the factuality is not. The idea of atheism is real, but the factuality of it is not. So I am agnostic. Why am I not an atheist? Nobody knows for sure.